Welcome back to The Backdrop. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by one of the most influential voices in the global event technology industry, Adam Parry. Adam is the co-founder of EventTech Live, the world's leading exhibition and conference dedicated to event technology, now in its 13th year, and recognized as the place where the industry's leading organizers, buyers, suppliers, and innovators come together to shape the future of live events. Each year, Event Tech Live attracts thousands of event professionals and showcases the latest advances in AI, event management platforms, audience engagement, marketing technology, and experiential innovation, making it one of the industry's most important annual gatherings. Alongside Event Tech Live, Adam is also the co-founder of the Event Technology Awards and was once editor of Event Industry News, one of the sector's most widely read media platforms. With more than 2 decades of experience spanning events and media, he has become a trusted authority on innovation, technology, and sustainability, helping event professionals navigate an industry that continues to evolve at an extraordinary pace. Whether advising organizers and technology companies on strategy and growth, moderating international conferences, or championing the ideas shaping tomorrow's events, Adam has played a significant role in connecting people, business, and technologies that continue to transform the live event industry. Adam, thank you for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be on the backdrop.
Well, I'm really glad that you could find the time to be with us. And I think that this is probably an episode that is a little more, important to what we discuss, which is the events industry. But event technology is really the backbone. And that's the stuff that changes so fast, so rapidly. When you created, and I think we're in the 13th season now for the 13th edition of Event Tech Live. When you're traveling around and you're really sort of catering to those real event professionals that really dig digital infrastructure, AI adoption, smart venues, and all of that. When this is going around the world and all of these different editions everywhere, what venue or what country, what city, what's something that stands out to you as a place that really gets it, that really is moving fast when it comes to event technology?
It's a really good question. And I've had the pleasure and honor of going to so many really interesting venues around the world, some that adopt and embrace technology, some that prefer the more traditional or analog approach to things. But actually, if I cast my mind back to around 13 years ago, I was invited in one of my previous roles as editor of Event Industry News to fly out to Taiwan with the local government there. And they wanted me to come out and experience one of their most brand new exhibition and conferencing venues out in Taiwan. And I think that was probably outside of the UK, the first time that I'd visited an opening of a venue. And what struck me there was just how much focus they'd put on future-proofing that venue from a digital infrastructure perspective.
Right.
From connectivity, infrastructure, what was available to organisers on site, but not only just at that moment in time, but like what was the infrastructure, what was the capability and the needs going to be within the next 5 to 10 years, what was coming down the road. And I think they were well positioned, Asia and venues and the events industry in that part of the world, in that region, are very tech adapted and very future forward thinking. So yeah, that was 13 years ago, before I launched Event Tech Live, that I was like, wow, technology is going to take such a primary and pole position in how we deliver events and the experiences that we put on for our attendees.
Yeah. So is there anything that stands out of any of the events that you've run where you felt that the visitors really, really get it. That you found let's say in your mind probably would seem like the most successful one. Are you able to pick one out, or is that going to put you in a hot spot?
Do you know, again, it's another really great question. And in my opinion, actually, the events that are doing technology the best often provide the most seamless and hidden experience when it comes to technology. It's not actually in front of people. It's not in people's minds. It just blends into the overall experience, whether that's, the speed at which they can check in at registration and get into the venue, whether it's how they access information as they're kind of looking through the venue and finding their way to the next exhibition stand or the next seminar theatre and things like that. I think now, there are some great events that are embracing technology to make things more accessible. And actually, I've been to some fantastic ones here recently in the Middle East that probably do that fantastically. I went to Make It in the Emirates, I think, if
Yeah.
I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that filtered down not just as the organizer and the show and the attendees, but the exhibitors really embracing innovation and technology to engage with the people that were at the show. So that's probably the most recent one that springs to mind.
Well, you've got a great foundation because I think you're based in the UAE,
Oh, yeah,
correct?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I am.
so there's probably no better place to really put forward the most progressive technology than the UAE because they love adopting. I mean, everything from private sector, public sector, and all the event companies here are always racing for the latest kit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've been coming to the Middle East now for the best part of 15 years through friends and close networks and stuff like that. And it's always been a region of the world I think, has been really inspirational just on so many different levels, and the events industry as well, right? And I think it's ingrained so much into the ethos of the city and the country and the region is events and hospitality work so well with the ecosystem of bringing business and trade here and visitors and hosting people and hosting great events and things like that. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to move here. I, worked for nearly 2 decades in the UK and been to so many events in the UK, so many events in Europe, and so many events in North America. So I've been really, really lucky. But for me, there was something different about this region. There was something so rapidly evolving, and I think so how the government is so involved and local authority are so
Sure.
involved in the events industry
Yeah.
was really inspiring. And I felt, and I said this when I moved here, this feels to me like it's going to become the epicenter of events and hospitality over the next 10 to 15 years.
And it feels like it's almost not even voluntary to adopt new technology. It's almost compulsory in
Yeah,
a way, without actually being written compulsory, but it feels like if you're not on the same level as the next group, then you're gonna get lost in the shuffle
yeah,
because you can come off as being a bit archaic and a bit antiquated as a group. But from all the event tech lives that you produced, in a decade and a half, and all the time you've been around this because you've not just created Event Tech Live as a platform, as a marketplace almost for like the highest level of technocrat within events. But you created a sort of a broader ecosystem, because you come from there. There's the background with the magazine and of course the awards, and you've made it your life. So you see things probably a lot of people wouldn't see, and because of your event's background, you're not just a pedestrian. You're not just creating an event because you want to create an event. You see a gap, but you create it because of your I guess passion for that niche within events that really can prop up an event. So having said that, those people that you meet at these events, the new companies, the founders that are creating all of these new solutions and innovations, do they signal in you some sort of do you see any sort of traits or characteristics, something that says, these guys have got something going on?
yeah. I think there's two traits that I find as signals really early on when I meet any new company or new organization coming to the industry with technology or solutions that they think will fit the market. And those two traits are, as a founder or as a team, they're inherently, you can just tell they're inherently people. and
Yeah.
they integrate themselves into the industry. They're present, they absorb events, they really want to get to understand how events work, or they're coming to the market with a solution having had 10, 15, 20 years of experience and pain
Yeah.
themselves of problems and challenges that they now realize AI can solve or technology can solve. And they want to create that and put that back into the market. So people that are in similar roles today where previously or their colleagues or network can take advantage of that. And I can think of some great examples of that. Where technology often fails within the market is where one or two of those are lacking.
Yeah.
They may be from a technology background, and that's not to say that they can't produce fantastic technology, but they don't understand how events work.
Yeah.
They try and fit square pegs into round holes, not knowing the cyclical nature of events, how so much changes in the last minute from an operations perspective on
Yeah.
events and things like that. So those are the two traits. They're either super passionate about people and communities and meeting face to face and things like that, or they have that one experience in
Yeah.
the sector.
Well, we're not as a, I don't like saying podcast, as a show, or a platform, we're not being paid by sponsors. We don't have partners. We're not monetized. We're doing this because of our love for the industry. So I don't mind mentioning companies or plugging companies and that sort of thing. But I want to, because this is going to lead into what I want to ask you. Um, when you're walking through the exhibition floor, it could be a 9 square meter shell scheme, or it could be some dramatic laser light show, drone show pavilion, that's, 200 square meters. That doesn't mean that what they have is going to be wow. It could be some small company that has something that have failed forward for years and they've really got something, but they're making it work however they can. And they want to get to Event Tech Live because they want to get their eyes,
Yeah.
they want to get maybe potential partners or potential investors' eyes on what they have. But when you're walking through that exhibition floor, or speaking to anyone, what are you seeing? What stops you in your tracks and says, these guys have got something. This is a really cool technology. Can you give a sort of what makes you stop and go, wow? And secondly, can you give us an example of some companies that you've seen that were like, wow, these guys are amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, full transparency, I advise a lot of companies as well. So I get to see behind the scenes before they even come to market, like what they're trying to produce and stuff. And don't get me wrong, on a show floor, some of the things that you said, they are going to stop you in your tracks. The huge LED moving screens, the rigged environments,
Yeah.
the things that are interactive and people can play and touch. But one of the companies that I think have really hit a sweet spot recently is a company called RealFlow. Now, the first touch point of so many attendees at an event, whether that's a returning attendee or a new potential attendee or even a new potential exhibitor, is an event website, right?
Right.
And the event website hasn't really changed a great deal. There's an About Us page, a sponsors page, an exhibitors page, a
A little
past
more interactive, but that's it.
and RealFlow have really come to market with humanizing what an event is, because at the end of the day, what's at the center of any event is a group of individuals or an entrepreneur or something like that that is super passionate about the market that they're in, they're supporting, they're trying to drive innovation forward themselves. And RealFlow have quite simply brought a super easy and interactive way for the people and the teams behind those events to engage with those attendees and actually get them to the point and the information that they want really, really quickly. We use them on our website, and we've seen great results in reduction of bounce rates and more satisfaction, a reduction actually in people emailing us saying, I can't find this, I can't find that exactly. Um, and I think that's a great problem to solve in the industry, because so often events can be so faceless to new people who have never experienced that before.
Yeah.
And I think to put the founders or the teams front and center behind those events really helps to humanize what an event is and attract people to come and attend.
Okay, so we went to one of these companies, and that was part of the question, but I want to ask you, what kind of technology, have you seen at these exhibitions? Like a sort of a type of technology or a function or an innovation or something new that you, as an events guy, thinking with your events brain, wow, they finally did it. This was needed. I'm so happy this has happened. So with the exception of the company you mentioned, what other like, you don't have to name a company, but just who has started off small and made it really, really big because they've really nailed it.
I think for me, the companies that are growing really massively at the moment are those that are leveraging AI to live translate whatever a speaker on stage is saying into multiple languages, and then also doing closed
Yeah.
captions as well.
Fairly accurately, I guess.
Fairly accurately these days,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The accuracy is super high. I think still in some particular industries, like maybe like finance or pharma, you still want somebody with experience in the market to be live translating some of those things because of the nuance of terminologies and things like that. But we're a global world with hundreds of languages, and if we want to attract a global audience, we have to understand that English is not everybody's first language.
Yeah.
We fall into that trap of thinking that that's the easiest way. But then there's also people that need accessibility accommodations. They may be slightly hard of hearing, or they might be deaf. They might need other things, which means closed captioning can help support them be able to understand and ensure that they've got clarity on the content. And I think that also opens the door to bring in speakers in from other countries, again, where English is not their first language. They can now speak in French, Italian, and everybody in the room can understand it. And I
Yeah.
think we are in the business of information exchange and knowledge exchange. So in order to do that, I think that really opens and is opening the doors up to a more global, inclusive sector.
And it makes sense because, with you from the UK and myself from Canada, we know that we're becoming more multicultural by
Yeah.
the day. And a lot of in addition, there are a lot of nations, a lot of countries that are now getting a lot of, FTI, and they're really growing in terms of their industry. So they're now having a presence at a lot of international events where they normally wouldn't. So Vietnam, for example, is a massively growing market. I mean, and they don't really have much of sort of an events industry, but they're at many of the shows, international, Malaysia, Thailand, for Asia, but also Africa. There's so much growth in many countries that didn't really have a presence at events, that now we really, I mean, translation is such a huge thing. I use translation a lot with a lot of the um, diplomatic or institutional events that I've run in the past, and they're just such a priceless. We had, just to, as an aside, there was an event that I've been working on for many years that was an event for foreign affairs ministers. And the founder of this, who's in his 80s, he says the most important person at this event is not a head of state or a head of government or a minister. The most important person is a translator. And I was, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right, because the messaging is so important. And if you get it wrong, so it's incredible that they have this technology now that, unfortunately, for many translators, are going to, cause a little bit of a ripple in their service. But it's amazing, that amongst many other things. I just want to ask, as an aside, what other, and I'm worried about asking this, but what other sort of services or products do you think could be now, and this is sort of an off the cuff question, or might be in danger because of the technology? I mean, is there anything that comes to mind that, I mean, translation is one. Is there anything else that you feel will never be a problem because it'll always be human, or other ones that might be shifting over to technology or AI or
A challenging question, Michael, because we don't want to scare anybody, and predictions are inherently more wrong than they are right. I think I can only speak from my own experience about how I'm seeing the ecosystem of who's involved in event creation production shifting.
yeah.
Um, from my own experience, where I would rely heavily on, let's say, graphic designers to help me translate my ideas into something visual, and then go through a process of iteration to get it to the final product that I want for my event or for my brand or whatever.
Right.
That would be a very one-on-one basis, back and forth, and sometimes take, a substantial amount of time because they've got to go off and interpret what I've asked for and then bring it back. And then I'm like, no, that not quite, that over there, this over here. One of the revelations for me has been recently is Claude design systems. Being able to give Claude as an AI solution, my brand assets, my brand guidelines, my logos, and all these types of things, and then produce rapidly prototypes of websites and flyers and documents and branding and signage and all these types of things. Now, is that at the level of what a designer would do at the top end and print ready? Absolutely not. Not yet.
No, no.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But it does mean that me as a founder or as a small team, we can do 90% of what we need to in a fraction of the time already, and then pass that to designer to say, hey, take this, upscale it to print ready, polish it, and push it out. And that's going to shift, right? Because there's a lot of agencies and a lot of companies that their bread and butter is that design element.
Yeah.
When agencies and teams and companies start to adopt these things, that's going to shift how much of that professional-led design we need. So that's one of the things that I'm seeing, and that even goes as far as to, I was talking to one individual who's just about to announce and deploy an um, an open solution. So it's open to anybody. There is no commercial element to it, that is now going to allow brands and agencies to 3D render and visualize and then run simulations on experiences at events.
Yeah.
And again, that's going to shift the market of who's involved in that content creation and things like that.
It's amazing. I know that it does provide, today's technology does provide the opportunity for smaller groups to fight against the big guys to some degree, at least move the needle slightly where they wouldn't have a chance before because of budgeting, because it does cost a lot. Designers cost a lot. Good designers
Yeah.
cost a lot. Creating a logo where the logo actually means something and the logo actually has a story woven into it, not just, here's a B and an A together and it does have a story behind it. So I think that we're lucky in that way that we have that for smaller groups.
I think to add to that, just to finish that perspective off, it's going to open the doors. And as you said, it's going to make things more accessible to more people, which should have the positive effect of more people wanting to invest in events because the cost of them comes slightly down, the risk, the speed in which people can deploy events, whether that's a small internal or an external sales kickoff or a customer event or anything like that. But actually what's still going to happen is the knowledge, the skill, the experience of those people are still going to be needed, because otherwise we're going to have everything look the same. Nobody wants to look the same as everybody else.
No.
So the creative aspect, the skill, the knowledge, the experience is still going to be that special mix that's going to still allow us to use those tools to do all of that prototyping and designing. But it's the human element that's still
I
the
think
key.
that's such a common sentiment when we interview people. I think there's such a common sentiment. We could probably run that verbatim with that part of every episode about how it's not ready, it's not there yet to take over from the human element. Um, so if you were not now, Event Tech Live, massively successful. It is the pivot point for all event technology people. It's very, very niche, and that's important because it does really speak to, I want to say event nerds, but the people that really know what they're talking about. And of course, any organization that is involved in events in any way that wants to better themselves. But if you weren't doing this, if this was not your path that you've carved out, what would you be doing? What's your other what other passion would you be pursuing if it weren't this?
I think I've always been a content creator at heart. I think events are an output of that. I've hosted podcasts. I speak at so many events. So I think I would like to think that I could carve a career out in the industry of knowledge transfer and inspiration, whatever that might be. I think so many people look to have experience and knowledge imparted on them so they can apply that to their businesses or themselves and things like that. And I think it's such an important part of the events industry or the world that we're in right now, even through social media or YouTube or whatever. So I would like to see myself in one of those generally content creator thought leadership perspectives. I think if you were to nail me right now, an idea that I've been dwelling on for the past what feels like 5 or 6 years is interviewing keynote speakers at events and really understanding why they speak about what they speak and why it's important to them and why they think that it's important to others and why it's their passion and things like that. I think that's such an interesting concept to interview those other people that are inspiring people. So yeah, I think I'd just fall into that content creator, thought leader kind of role.
But that's also something you could do at Event Tech Live. Or, yeah, I mean, as a side gig, maybe. Yeah, because it's great. I think when you're interviewing people and they're coming off stage, you can, because keynote speakers clearly are selected because they have a passion
Yeah.
and they have the knowledge and because they sort of, they're the ones that create the, I don't want to say, create the template within their industry. But that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Start with Event Tech Live.
Yeah.
But you kind of do that anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very careful not to take stage at my own
Yeah.
show. But one of the things that we have invested in over the last couple of years, and I see this now blowing up, I mean, it's ubiquitous even at the shows that I go to here in the Middle East, is we invested in a podcast stage.
Yeah.
Not only so we could have those more intimate conversations, more personal conversations with the speakers and the audience and the attendees themselves, but also to provide a platform for others who also host podcasts, who also want that more intimate format to come and utilize that infrastructure
No.
and have those discussions.
I think my passion would be spending the rest of my life eradicating the word podcast
Why is
and
that?
finding
Do you want?
something else. I don't know what I mean. Tech cast. I don't know. Like just yeah, we just end up saying
You'll have
show.
to blame Apple for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the sort of I want to find out what you feel is the biggest shift that organizers actually expect from event technology. So these Informas and DMGs and DXB Lives and all these guys that are investing in event technology.
Okay.
What's their expectation? I mean,
Okay. So that's a really interesting question because there's two answers to that.
right.
And it really depends on what type of company you are and on what drives the reason that you're actually delivering and producing events. Um, and I say this not in a negative or bad way, but when you are a company of the scale of Informa and Clarion and DXB, you're driven by shareholders, which means you're driven by margins and profit and scale. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But that means that the technology use is about data that helps them drive that bottom line. So very much from a revenue opportunity, from how can we make more margin, how can we deliver better experience, because that ultimately does mean better ROI for exhibitors and sponsors. So therefore they spend more money or they're more loyal to you as a customer. Where are the opportunities for growth? Where are the opportunities for geo-cloning events and scaling and launching new things? And also more so, analyzing the data of other potential acquisition targets, such in M&A, to understand whether that actually fits really nicely within their business model and whether they can take it to that next level and scale it even further. That's how these large companies grow most of the time, is through acquiring other businesses. But on the other hand, when you talk to the other side, where the emphasis is more on creating human connection first and foremost, then it's what are the touch points, what are the physics at play in and around an event, so we can understand how people interact and what's important to them and what demographic and profile of meaning do they fall into when they're looking to come to an event. Are they a networker? Are they a salesperson? Are they looking for education and inspiration? Are they a combination of all of those? And what type of experience and message are we crafting and creating for them, so they, as an individual or as a small community attending our event, get the maximum amount of value out of it?
Yeah.
That tends to lean more into what I would call the corporate brand enterprise side. So, companies like HubSpot and Amazon, when they're doing their events and their experiences, that's the meaningful stuff to them, because the pipeline takes care of itself, right?
Yeah.
As long as they can create a sense of meaning and belonging with those people that are attending those events, they spend money with them, and that's
Yeah.
how. So it depends on which side of the the cookie you are.
It's true, but you're creating the platform. You're not holding their hands, but
No.
you're creating the ecosystem where they can thrive within. You're putting all of the right components in place so they can meet each other and they can chat and they can find out because, like you said, there are different roles within the events industry that need different things. There are different companies
Yeah.
that don't need one solution, but another company might need that solution.
Yeah.
So it's going to vary from company to company. It's going to vary from person to person. And I think that just in general, they want to find the technology that's creating the most value for them.
That's true, and really, actually, what Event Tech Live comes down to is it is funded through companies and that are sponsoring and have these technologies to overcome these problems and challenges.
Right.
But the biggest problem and challenge when it comes to technology in any sector is change management. It's how do we go from nothing to something and then to scale that so it's more effective. Technology evolves and moves and changes quite rapidly. So the biggest challenge actually comes from how do we stay on top of a moving goal? How do we
Yeah.
empower our team? How do we educate our team? How do we learn from others about how they're leveraging technology and the benefits and the products? And that's what Event Tech Live is. We are, as one of the smaller niche events in the sector, we actually have percentage-wise some of the largest education programs in the market. So we have
Yeah.
4 stages of content across 2 days. We have other elements like brain dates and one-to-one meetings and all these kinds of things. So that's the center of Event Tech Lab. It's actually how can we empower and share that knowledge and educate people so that they can make better use of technology.
But it's a wide spectrum. It's very robust. You're creating because you say you might be one of the most smaller niches, but it's the one moving the fastest,
Yes.
and it's the one that's affecting the event the most as well. I mean, stand design and things like this, and these are things that are going to change, sort of, the very slightly. But what you're doing is really, supporting the events industry through the rapid changes that they're going through. So I want to thank you very much, Adam. I think we had a really great chat. I think it's really interesting, because it's such, like I've said, probably woven in every question, that it's such an important feature within events is the technology because we can't avoid it anymore. But thank you again for joining us. And before you go, I want to know what's going on with Event Tech Live. I mean, what are what's the next? Where is it? Next dates? What are you expecting? Come on, just give us the whole boilerplate.
I appreciate that. So Event Tech Live takes place in November at Excel in London across the 11th and 12th. We're expecting about 3,000 buyers from about 40 different countries with circa 100 to 120 companies that are kind of leading the charge when it comes to technology and innovation in the market. A number of those brand new to the market. There's a huge focus this year on obviously AI and AI adoption.
Yeah.
So this year we have our main stage, which is the big, broad highlight reel of kind of conversations going off in the market. But we have a dedicated AI and innovation stage. We have a dedicated experiential and engagement stage, which is about how we create experience and use his technology. And then actually brand new for this year and a space that we're moving into gradually is a dedicated stage in MarTech and growth. Again, supporting event marketers and entrepreneurs and business owners that want to really leverage technology to move the needle when it comes to growth of events and their revenue and their marketing and audience acquisition and things like that. And that's a signal to where we're going to a co-locate coming in 2027 that will be blended into Event Tech Live and really complement it and bring a new audience into the market as well.
Do you have a strong regional representation coming to London?
Yeah,
For this?
absolutely. For whatever reason, the UK and London for so many years was kind of like this hub of event technology. So many founders were based there, so many companies and individuals. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing, really strong, rapidly growing companies across North America. There's some fantastic ones homegrown here in the Middle East. And that's the thing about event technology, actually. In some ways, you have this ecosystem of global scale and global companies that can deliver their technology anywhere. but to some degree, technology is still very much localized, and people want to deal with people that can deliver that technology locally.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck with it. I don't like to say I probably don't have to wish you any luck with it because you're in your 13th edition and it's just flying. So I'm really, really happy that you found the time to join us. And we hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you very much for having me
Take
on.
care. Thank you, Adam.